My dad once told us a true scary story of his, from when he was in his 20s, when he was still living with my grandparents. He lived next door to this older couple in their 60s. One winter, the wife, Margie, next door went missing. The husband knocked on their door and asked my grandparents if they'd seen her, but unfortunately, they hadn't. No one had, apparently. A few days later, my dad was out at the park playing football with friends. That's when it started to snow. They played in the snow for a while until it got to be too much. Then they all went their separate ways back home. When my dad got home, he realized his parents were gone. My dad started the fireplace and went to his room, which was adjacent to the living room, to throw his stuff on his bed. Then he went to take a warm shower and he got out from the shower. He thought he heard humming from the living room, outside the bathroom. He opened the door, cracking his towel, and said, "Mom." The humming stopped, but a creaking sound continued. My dad threw on his clothes in the bathroom and walked out into the living room. There, in my grandpa's old rocking sofa chair, was Margie for next door. She looked straight at my dad and said it was so cold, I needed to get warm. My dad ran next door to get the husband, but when the two of them returned to the living room, the sofa chair was empty. Margie was gone. The two of them searched the whole house together, calling her name, but she wasn't there. Now, this much of the story was enough to creep me out already when my dad told it to us. But it didn't end there. And the really scary part didn't happen until the next day, when Margie's dead body was found in the man next door's crawl space, where she apparently tripped and sliced her head open on a sharp object. He only found her because the smell became so unbearable. He smelled it from the garage. The thing is, the body was deemed to have been dead for at least 3 days, yet my dad saw her in the living room just the day before. To this day, my dad believes he saw the ghost of Margie in my grandparents' living room that day. And my dad's not want to make stuff like this up when he first told us the story, when I was 9. Let's just say I didn't get much sleep that night. My friend Keith has an uncle with dementia. Long story short, his uncle usually lives with his grandma, but she was in Florida with some church group for the week, and Keith was going on a business trip. So while he was gone, he hired me to house site. This included watching after and taking care of his uncle. I'll call him Uncle Nick. Keith would only be gone for 2 days on the first day of my house sitting. I mostly just hung out in the backyard, reading and tanning, or in the living room, watching TV cooked twice. Each time I made extra food for Uncle Nick, but I never saw him come out of his room upstairs. I went up to knock on his door lightly and tell him I made food. I heard a grunting noise on the other side of the door. I assumed that was his way of acknowledging me. I never actually met his uncle. Oddly enough, we weren't introduced when Keith hired me for this little job. Uncle Nick was fully aware of my being there. At least that's what Keith said. He never left his room to eat while I was in the living room. So I went up to Keith's spare room for the night. I left the door cracked open so I could listen, and I eventually heard a door down the hall opening, and unsettlingly quick and heavy footsteps moving down the hall and down the stairs. Seconds later, I heard the same footsteps, rushed back up the stairs and back to the room, and the door slammed shut. It was honestly a little unnerving, hard to explain, just the intensity of his footsteps, like he was avoiding me or something. The next day was pretty similar to the first. I made 2 meals and left the food on the counter for Uncle Nick, both times. When I was laying in the backyard again, I came back in to see the plate was empty, so I guess he was really avoiding me. I went back out to tan some more, and when I thought about it, I looked up to the bedroom Nick was staying at, and there he was, looking at me through the window. I think when he noticed me, he ducked down. I felt so uncomfortable that I folded up the blanket and went back inside and up to the spare bedroom. It was okay. One more night of this, and I'd be home. I made dinner that night and left him another plate. As I walked up to the spare bedroom, I noticed his bedroom door was open. Now, first time I'd seen that. Maybe he was becoming less shy, I went to brush my teeth and go to my room for the rest of the night to give him his space. I was having a rough time sleeping though. I just wasn't tired at all. While laying there in the dark, I heard a short creaking sound coming from inside the room, even over the noise of the fan next to me. I sat up and looked around, still able to slightly see in the dark room. I didn't see anything. More specifically, I didn't see Uncle Nick. I was getting paranoid. Honestly, why was I becoming so creeped out by him? I lay back down on my side, facing the wall next to the bed. I ignored the little sounds I thought I was hearing in my head for the most part, but when I heard a very faint groan, I sat up and turned off the fan to listen. I heard breathing. I turned to the far right side of the room by the desk, and there he was. Sitting on the desk chair turned to me. I screamed in fear, and he came up to me going "she" and covered my mouth with his hand. In the moment, I thought he was trying to suffocate me. So I pushed him off of me and ran to the nearest bathroom to lock the door. I listened as I heard his manic footsteps rush back to his room and slam the door. My heart was pounding inside my chest. I called Keith and told him about it. He sounded like he wasn't even that shocked. That's the scary thing. He told me it's best I sleep in the bathroom with the door locks. And when he said that, it said to me that his Uncle Nick is potentially dangerous, which scares me even more. I slept maybe 3 hours max that night on the bathroom floor, and in the morning, I quickly packed my backpack and waited out in the backyard for Keith to return. He paid me extra for what I had to deal with, and I suggested he get his uncle some serious help because I think he has more than dementia, and I still don't know what his intentions were that night. So I've had quite a few bad experiences with strange people at my house, from when I was young and an old man would come banging on our door late at night, demanding to see me, to the time when a man showed up on my doorstep late at night holding a knife because he mistook my house for my neighbor's. These experiences all caused me to be very cautious about opening the front door to anyone or even being in the house alone, especially at night. But one evening was definitely the worst. It was around 0 p.m. in November of 2018. I'm from England, meaning it was already pitch black outside at this time of the year. I had just gotten home from work and was sat upstairs in my room watching YouTube on my laptop. My mom shouted up to me that she was going to pick up my brother from his work and will be stopping off at the petrol station on the way back. She was going to be gone for a while, so she asked if I wanted to come with her. I said no and carried on watching my video. I heard her pull out of the driveway. I was 17 at the time, so being home alone at night was nothing new to me. I was used to the eerie feeling that it brought on, but after around 10 minutes, I started hearing noises coming from downstairs. At first, I thought nothing of it. I just thought it was my cat noisily searching for food in an empty bowl. But then I remembered my cat was sitting at the edge of my bed. I paused my video and listened to the sound closer. I realized it was the sound of banging on my back door. This instantly creeped me out, until it was followed by the sound of keys jangling. This calmed my nerves a bit. I thought my mom must have dropped off my brother before heading to the patrol station, and he was just trying to get outside. I let the noise continue as I kept watching my video. He could get quite angry sometimes, so the loud banging was nothing out of the ordinary. But it just kept carrying on. More banging sounds and the sound of the keys jangling, then dropping and more banging. That's when the fear really hit me. I didn't think it was him. I walked out of my room slowly and sat on the stairs, carefully listening to the noise. It definitely was not him. I'm a very anxious person, and everyone gets those times late at night when they hear noises and immediately think the worst. I was trying to convince myself that this was just one of those times. So I decided to bite the bullet and just walk straight into the kitchen, turn towards the back door, and face whatever was causing that noise. But as I turned the corner into the kitchen, I heard one last loud bang, and then the clatter of footsteps running away. I examined the back door. The cat flap had been completely ripped off of the door, and the plastic from it was scattered everywhere. I'll admit, at this point I was still trying to console myself. I was trying to convince myself that it could be anything other than people trying to break into my home. I ran back to the stairs and sat down. I needed to call my mom. I needed to make sure she really hadn't dropped off my brother early. The phone rang a few times and then it picked up. But it wasn't my mom on the end of the line. It was my brother. I shouted at him, asking if he was home. He said no. Then my voice started to break with terror. "Please be serious. Are you at home right now?" He said no again, even though he said he wasn't home. I still begged in my mind that he was joking just to get a scare out of me. But then he heard how scared I was, and he began to worry too. I explained to him everything that happened. He started to scream at me, saying I should have called the police. He's never been the protective type, but I could tell how worried he was. He told my mom to rush home right away. I dialed the police. I tried really hard to stay calm as I told them exactly what was happening. I hid back in my room with the door tightly locked. A bit later, I started to hear talking from my back door. Then the banging started again. This time, I couldn't stay calm. I burst into tears while explaining what was happening to the dispatcher. She stayed on the phone with me for what felt like forever, until my mom, brother, and police all pulled up at the same time. They burst into the house and all ran to the back door. They saw what was done right away. There was a set of keys on the counter by the back door, visible through the kitchen window. Someone looked through the window and saw the set of keys. They then took a broom and snapped it in half over the door handle. They then used the broken broom to reach to the cat flap and knock the keys off the counter and pull them outside. However, out of pure luck, when they broke the broom over the door handle, they somehow managed to snap the door handle clean off, making the keys they just got useless. This was extremely lucky. Otherwise, they would have gotten in, no questions asked, and I would have been sat in my room quietly, completely oblivious. It was clear afterwards that they had been watching our house for a while. They were waiting for the exact moment that they saw my mom's car pull out of the driveway. I'm not sure if they knew I was there alone or not, but I know after they initially saw me, they ran away and they made a choice to come back. Let this be a lesson. Always keep your keys in a place that someone breaking a window or a cat flap cannot reach.